The sun rose over the Pacific Ocean, painting the water in shades of gold and red. Admiral Park Suho watched it through the orbital cameras of his flagship. The horizon's edge, he stood alone on the observation deck. His hands clasped behind his back, his gray uniform pressed and perfect. He was 58 years old. He had fought in 3 wars. He had buried his wife. He had watched his daughter grow into a soldier. And now, on this quiet morning, he knew he might be watching humanity's last sunrise. 3 days ago, the Valkyrie had sent their message. The alien race had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They were old. They were powerful. They looked at younger species the way humans once looked at cattle. Their message was simple. Surrender all human colonies. Allow 10 billion humans to be taken for processing. 1 billion would be permitted to live as servants. This was their mercy. The Galactic Council, that great gathering of alien races, had offered no help. Humanity was too young, they said. Too small. Too weak. The Valkyrie had destroyed dozens of species before. What was one more? But humanity had chosen a different path. Suho turned away from the window and walked through the corridors of his ship. Crew members saluted as he passed. He nodded to each one, trying to remember their faces. The horizon's edge carried 2,000 souls. The entire fleet carried over 3 million. By tomorrow, he did not know how many would still be alive. He found his daughter on the bridge. Lieutenant Park Yuna sat at the communications station, her fingers moving across holographic displays. She was 29 years old, with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. When she saw him enter, she stood and saluted. At ease, Suho said. He walked to stand beside her, looking out at the main view screen. The moon hung in the darkness, and around it, the greatest fleet humanity had ever built was gathering. 4,000 ships. Battleships and carriers, destroyers and cruisers, fighters and bombers. Everything humanity had. Everything they could build in the years since first contact. All ships report ready, Admiral, Yuna said. Her voice was steady, but Suho could see the tension in her shoulders. Final crew counts are complete. Supply ships have finished their runs. We are at full capacity. Suho nodded slowly. And the Nova Lances? Chief Engineer Bay reports all systems operational. Yuna paused. He also reports that they have never been tested in actual combat. He wants that noted in the record. A small smile crossed Suho's face. Bae-dohan was a careful man. He had spent 15 years developing the Nova Lance technology. The weapons could turn a ship's reactor into a directed burst of stellar energy. One shot could destroy anything, but firing it also destroyed the ship that fired it. It was a weapon of last resort. A weapon of desperation. It was exactly what they needed. Noted in the record, Suho said. And tell Doan that I have complete faith in his work. The bridge doors opened, and more officers entered. Rear Admiral Shin Boyao, a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, took her place at the logistics station. Vice Admiral Choi Junho, tall and broad, with a scar across his chin, stood at the tactical display. Commodore Yoon Hami, young for her rank but brilliant, activated the Special Operations Console. They were his admirals, his friends, his family, and the way that soldiers become family after enough years of war. Status reports, Suho said. Boyang spoke first. Supply lines are secure. Every ship has full ammunition, full fuel, full medical supplies. Whatever happens out there, we will not lose because we ran out of bullets. Junho was next. Fighter wings are ready. 1,200 squadrons across the fleet. Pilots have been briefed on Valkyrie tactics. He paused. They know the odds. They are ready anyway. Hami finished. Special operations teams are in position. If we can get close enough to Velthari command ships, we can board them. We have studied their technology. We know their weaknesses. Suho listened to each report. He asked questions. He made small adjustments to the battle plan. But in his heart, he knew that no plan would survive contact with 40,000 Velthari warships. They would have to adapt. They would have to improvise. They would have to be human. An hour before the jump, he made the broadcast. His face appeared on every screen in the fleet. On every screen on Earth. On every screen across the 17 colony worlds. Billions of humans stopped what they were doing and looked up at the old admiral with the tired eyes. "My name is Park Suho," he said. "In 1 hour, I will lead the combined fleet of Earth against the Velthari Dominion. I will not promise you victory. I will not tell you that we will all come home. The enemy is stronger than us. They have more ships. They have better technology. They have 10,000 years of conquest behind them." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But they do not have what we have. They do not have mothers who will die before they let their children be taken. They do not have fathers who will burn their own ships to protect their families. They do not have scientists who will work until their hands bleed to give us one more weapon. They do not have soldiers who will stand and fight when every logical calculation says to run." His voice grew stronger. "The Velthari think we are weak because we are young. They think we are foolish because we refuse to surrender. They think we are already dead, and we simply do not know it yet. Today, we will teach them what humanity means. Today, we will show them that there are things worse than death. Today, we will make them understand that some species do not go quietly into extinction." He looked directly into the camera. "To my soldiers, I am proud to fight beside you. To my people, I am proud to fight for you. Whatever happens in the next 24 hours, know this. We did not beg. We did not bow. We stood up and we fought back. And the galaxy will remember." The broadcast ended. Silence filled the bridge. Then Yuna spoke, her voice soft. Mom would have been proud. Suho felt his throat tighten. His wife had died in the First Contact War, when the Velthari had first announced their presence by destroying a human colony ship. 8,000 people, gone in an instant. His wife had been a doctor on that ship, traveling to help establish a new medical center. She never arrived. "She would have told me I talked too much," Suho said. Yuna laughed, and the sound broke the tension on the bridge. Other officers smiled. Someone made a joke. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Purpose. Determination. Hope. The countdown reached 0. "All ships," Suho said. "Begin jump sequence." Across the fleet, engines roared to life. Reality bent and twisted as 4,000 ships tore holes in space-time. The stars stretched into lines of light. The moon and Earth disappeared behind them. Admiral Park Suho stood at the center of his bridge, surrounded by his officers, his daughter at his side, and watched humanity leap into the darkness. "We go not to conquer," he whispered, so quietly that only Yuna could hear, "but to prove we deserve to exist." The fleet vanished from human space. Dawn had come and gone. Now there was only the journey, and the war that waited at its end. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Velthari home system. For 3 seconds, nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. Every human in the fleet simply stared at what waited for them. 40,000 ships. Captain Quan Jisu stood on the bridge of her destroyer, the pale fire, and felt her stomach drop. She was 34 years old. She had commanded this ship for 6 years. She had fought pirates and rebels and border skirmishes. She had never felt afraid before battle. But now, looking at the wall of enemy vessels that stretched across her view screen like a metal horizon, she understood what fear truly meant. Each Velthari ship was enormous. The smallest was twice the size of any human vessel. The largest, the command dreadnoughts, were like floating cities. They were black and angular, covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and move. They hung in space with the patience of predators who knew their prey could not escape. "Captain," her tactical officer said, his voice shaking. "I am counting. I cannot count them all. There are too many." Jisoo forced herself to breathe. She looked around her bridge at the 20 officers who served under her. They were young, most of them. The oldest was 40. They had families back home. They had futures they wanted to live. And they were all looking at her, waiting for her to tell them it would be okay. She could not lie to them. So she told them the truth. "We knew they would outnumber us," she said. "We knew their ships would be bigger. We knew our chances were small." She paused. "But we came anyway. Because some things matter more than survival. Because our families are behind us. Because if we do not fight, no one will." She saw their backs straighten. She saw the fear turn into something harder. "Battle stations," she ordered. "And someone get me a status report from the rest of the fleet." Across the human formation, similar scenes played out on every ship. Admirals and captains, officers and enlisted crew all stared at the impossible odds and chose to stay anyway. On the horizon's edge, Admiral Suho studied the tactical display with cold eyes. The Valkyrie fleet had formed into an execution formation. 5 layers of ships, each positioned to pour fire into any attack. It was not a defensive stance. It was a statement. They were so confident in their victory that they did not even bother to prepare for a real battle. "Admiral," Dr. Han Mai-Rei said from her station. She was the fleet's chief scientist, a woman of 45 with messy hair and glasses that were always slightly crooked. She had designed the tactical AI that coordinated human fleet movements. She had also designed the virus that might be their only hope. "I have finished running the probability calculations, and our odds of winning are approximately 0.003%. She smiled, though there was no humor in it. "So you are telling me there is a chance?" Despite everything, Suho almost laughed. "What about the virus? Is it ready?" "Ready and waiting. The moment we engage, I will begin broadcasting. It will not destroy their ships, but it will strip away their stealth technology. It will make them visible. It will let us see them coming." She pushed her glasses up her nose. "I have spent 15 years preparing this. It is my life's work. I hope it is enough." Before Suho could respond, the communications array crackled. A voice came through, deep and metallic, like machinery trying to imitate speech. It spoke in perfect human language. "I am the voice of endings. I speak for the Valkyrie Dominion. I speak for 10,000 years of order. I speak for the natural hierarchy of the galaxy." Every human in the fleet heard the message. It was broadcast on all frequencies, impossible to block. "Your species has produced 11 billion souls across your colonies. We require 10 billion for processing. 1 billion may continue to serve us. This is mercy. This is more than we have offered any species before. Surrender now, and the chosen billion will live. Resist and all will be processed. There will be no exceptions. There will be no survivors. Choose." The transmission ended. On a troop carrier near the back of the fleet, Sergeant O Tai-Wu sat in his bunk and wrote a letter to his son. The boy was 7 years old and lived on Mars with his grandmother. Tai-Wu had not seen him in 3 years. "My dear Minho," he wrote, "I do not know if I will come home. I do not know if any of us will. But I want you to understand why I am here. The Valkyrie want to take you. They want to take your grandmother. They want to take every person you have ever known and turn them into something horrible. I cannot let that happen. Even if it costs me everything, I cannot let that happen. Be brave, my son. Be kind. And know that your father loved you more than all the stars in the sky." He sealed the letter and placed it in the ship's message archive. If the ship survived, the letter would be delivered. If not, at least he had tried. The fleet waited. Minutes passed. No one fired. No one moved. Then Admiral Suho opened a channel to the Voice of Endings. His face was calm. His voice was steady, but there was iron beneath his words. "I am Admiral Park Suho of the United Earth Fleet. I have a counteroffer for the Veltari Dominion." The alien voice responded immediately. "You are in no position to offer anything. Hear it anyway." Suho leaned forward. "Leave this galaxy. Go far away and never return. Do this, and we will permit you to live." Silence. Then the Voice of Endings made a sound that might have been laughter. It was horrible, like metal grinding against metal, like bones breaking under pressure. "You are amusing, human. Your species has existed for 300,000 years. We have ruled for 10,000. We have destroyed civilizations older than your planet. And you offer us terms?" "I offer you a warning," Suho said. "We are not like the others you have killed. We do not know how to surrender. We do not know how to give up. If you fight us, you will win, but the price will be higher than you can imagine. We will make you bleed for every ship. We will make you suffer for every soldier. And when it is over, the galaxy will see that the mighty Veltari can be hurt. They will see that you can be fought, and they will rise against you." The Voice of Endings spoke again, and now its tone had changed. There was something colder in it, something ancient and cruel. "Then you have chosen extinction. So be it." The Veltari fleet began to move. Admiral Suho watched them come. Beside him, his daughter Yuna gripped her console. Behind him, his admirals took their positions. Across the fleet, 3 million humans prepared to fight. "All ships," Suho said, and his voice carried across 4,000 vessels. "This is the moment. This is what we trained for. This is what we were born for. Show them what humanity means." The first Veltari weapons fired. The battle for the galaxy had begun. The first hour was slaughter. Veltari weapons tore through human shields like they were made of paper. Their energy beams did not simply damage ships. They passed through metal and circuitry, burning everything they touched. Human vessels exploded in chains of fire across the battle line. 800 ships died in the first 60 minutes. 20,000 humans, gone in flashes of light that lasted less than a second each. Captain Quan Jisoo watched 3 ships in her squadron vanish before she could even give an order. The pale fire shook as enemy fire grazed her shields. Warning lights flashed red across her bridge. Her tactical officer was shouting numbers, casualty reports, damage assessments. None of it mattered. In a battle like this, numbers were just another way of counting the dead. "Captain," her helmsman yelled. "The enemy flagship. Its shield generator is on the lower port section. If we could hit it." "We cannot get close enough," her weapons officer replied. "Our guns do not have the range." Jisoo looked at the tactical display. The Veltari command ship was enormous, a floating mountain of black metal. It sat at the center of their formation, protected by dozens of smaller vessels. Its shield generator pulsed with blue light. If that generator fell, the formation would have a gap. A weakness. A chance. "We can't shoot it," Jisoo said slowly. "But we can reach it." Her officers understood. She saw the fear in their eyes. She also saw them accept it. "Helmsman," she ordered, "set collision course for the enemy flagship. All crew to escape pods. Now." The crew moved fast. They had trained for this. They had hoped they would never have to use that training. Within 3 minutes, the pale fire was empty except for Jisoo and her helmsman, a young man named Go Sunwoo who refused to leave. "Someone has to steer," he said simply. Jisoo nodded. There was nothing else to say. The pale fire accelerated. Enemy ships tried to intercept. Jisoo fired every weapon they had left, not to destroy, but to distract. Sungwoo flew like a man possessed, dodging beams and missiles, weaving through explosions. The flagship grew larger on their view screen. The shield generator pulsed, blue and bright dot at the last moment. Jisoo grabbed Sungwoo and pushed him toward the final escape pod. He tried to resist. She was stronger. "Tell them we made it count," she said, and closed the pod door. The pale fire struck the shield generator at full speed. The explosion was visible across the battlefield. The Valkyrie flagship shuddered. Its shields flickered and died along one entire section. For the first time in the battle, the enemy formation had a hole. Admiral Suho saw it happen. He did not hesitate. "All Nova Land ships," he ordered. "Fire on the gap, now." Across the fleet, 12 specially equipped vessels turned toward the opening. Chief Engineer Bae Do-hun had spent 15 years building these weapons. Now they would finally be used. The crews of those ships knew what came next. They fired anyway. 12 stars were born in the darkness of space. The Nova Lances worked by converting a ship's entire reactor into directed stellar energy. The result was a beam of pure destruction, hotter than the surface of a sun. It lasted only seconds. It annihilated everything in its path. And it killed the ship that fired it. 12 human ships died. But 200 Valkyrie vessels died with them. For a moment, the Valkyrie fleet stopped moving. They had never seen anything like this. No species had ever weaponized their own extinction before. No prey had ever chosen to burn itself to hurt its predators. On the horizon's edge, Dr. Han Mai-Ri activated her virus. It spread through the Valkyrie communication network in seconds. It did not damage their systems. It did not shut down their weapons. It did something worse. It stripped away their stealth technology. Suddenly, every Valkyrie ship was visible. Every movement could be tracked. Every ambush could be predicted. "It is working," Mai-Ri breathed. Her hands were shaking. 15 years of work, and it was finally doing what she had designed it to do. But the battle was far from over. Pilot An So-jin flew through the chaos in her fighter, her squadron following close behind. She was 22 years old. She had graduated from Flight Academy 3 months ago. She had never killed anyone before today. Now she had destroyed 4 enemy fighters, and she had watched 6 of her friends die. Her squadron leader, a woman named Baek Ji-yeon, had been the first to go. Her fighter had taken a direct hit protecting a damaged cruiser. Seo-jin had heard her scream over the radio. Then there was silence. "Red Squadron," Seo-jin called out. "Form up on me. We are going for their command nodes." "There are only 5 of us left," someone replied. "Red 3, a boy named Wang Do-yeon. He was 19. "Then 5 of us will have to be enough." They dove into the enemy formation. Valkyrie fighters swarmed around them like angry insects. Seo-jin flew by instinct, her hands moving faster than her thoughts. She fired at anything that was not human. She dodged beams that would have turned her into ash. She watched Red 5 disappear in a ball of flame. Then Red 2. Then Red 4. Only she and Do-yeon remained. The command node was ahead, a tower of metal on the side of a Valkyrie carrier. If they could destroy it, the carrier would lose coordination with the rest of the fleet. It would be blind and deaf. "I will draw their fire," Do-yeon said. "You take the shot." Before Sagin could argue, he was gone. His fighter streaked toward a group of enemy vessels, weapons blazing. They turned to face him. They forgot about her dot. She had 3 seconds. She used them. Her missiles struck the command node. It exploded in a shower of sparks and debris. The carrier began to drift, its movements suddenly random and confused. Doyen's fighter exploded behind her. Saojin did not cry. There would be time for tears later, if she survived. Instead, she turned her damaged fighter back toward the main battle. Her left engine was failing. Her weapons were nearly empty. She did not care. She would keep flying until she could not fly anymore. Back on the horizon's edge, and Meryl Suho studied the tactical display. 6 hours had passed. Humanity had lost 2,400 ships, but the Valkyrie had lost 8,000. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. "Admiral," Yuna said. Her voice was rough. She had not slept since the battle began. "The voice of endings is broadcasting again." The alien voice filled the bridge, and now there was something different in its tone. Not fear, exactly, but uncertainty, confusion. "You cannot win," the voice said. "You are dying. Your fleet is broken. Why do you continue?" Suho opened a channel. "Because dying is not losing. Because every ship you destroy costs you something. Because when this is over, the galaxy will know that the Valkyrie can bleed. And they will never fear you again." The voice of endings was silent for a long moment. "Then we will make you suffer," it said finally. "We will make your deaths last forever." Suho smiled. It was not a happy smile. "You can try." He closed the channel and looked at his admirals. Boyan, Junho, Hami. They were tired. They were wounded. But they were still fighting. "The Prometheus Protocol," Suho said. "All damaged ships are to target enemy vessels directly. No retreats. No surrenders. Make every death count." The order went out across the fleet, and in the burning darkness of space, humanity continued to fight. The battle had lasted 14 hours. Both fleets were broken, bleeding, dying. Admiral Park Suho stood at the center of his bridge, though standing was difficult now. A piece of metal had cut his forehead during an explosion 3 hours ago. Blood kept dripping into his left eye. He wiped it away and kept watching the tactical display, kept giving orders, kept fighting. His daughter Yuna lay on the floor behind him. Shrapnel had torn through her side during the same explosion. The medical team had patched her up as best they could, but she had refused to go to the medical bay. She sat at her console, her uniform dark with blood, her fingers still moving across the controls. "I can still work," she had said when he tried to order her to leave. "I will rest when we win." Suho had not argued. There was no point. She was his daughter. She was exactly like him. Across the battlefield, the human fleet was down to 1,100 ships. The Valkyrie had lost nearly 20,000, but they still had 20,000 more. The numbers were still impossible. But something had changed. The enemy was not fighting the same way anymore. Their movements were hesitant. Their attacks were less coordinated. For the first time, the Valkyrie seemed unsure. On a damaged troop carrier, Sergeant O Taiwu led what remained of his unit through the corridors of a Valkyrie ship. The boarding action had been desperate from the start. Their carrier had collided with an enemy vessel, and Taiwu had led 200 soldiers through the breach. Now only 40 remained. They had fought through alien corridors filled with strange machines and stranger creatures. They had killed things they did not understand. They had lost friends in ways they would never forget. But they had found something. The processing facility. It was a vast room, larger than any building Taiwu had ever seen. And it was filled with bodies. Thousands of bodies. Aliens of species he did not recognize, frozen in tubes of blue liquid. Their eyes were open. Their mouths were twisted in silent screams. They were being processed, whatever that meant, turned into something else. Something useful to the Valkyrie. "Record everything," Taiwu ordered. His voice was shaking. "The galaxy needs to see this. His soldiers activated their helmet cameras. They documented the horror. Every tube, every face, every silent scream. Then Taiwu opened a broadcast channel to the human fleet. To Earth, to every receiving station in the galaxy. This is what they do, he said. This is what processing means. This is what the Velthari planned for humanity. For all of us. Look at them. Remember them. And never let this happen again. The images spread across the stars. Species that had stayed silent, that had accepted Velthari rule, that had been too afraid to fight, now saw the truth. The Velthari were not rulers. They were harvesters. They were monsters dot on the horizon's edge. Rear Admiral Shin Boyan watched the broadcast with tears in her eyes. She was 71 years old. She had 4 grandchildren on Earth. She had always known what the Velthari were. But seeing it was different. Seeing it made her rage burn hotter than any star. Admiral Suho, she said, the supply fleet is empty. We have given everything we have to give. She paused. Permission to use our ships as shields for the combat vessels. Suho turned to look at her. Boyang, you do not have to do this. I know. She smiled. I want to. My grandchildren deserve a future. This is how I give it to them. She did not wait for permission. She opened the channel to her fleet. 43 ships that had carried ammunition and fuel and medicine. Now they would carry something else. Logistics fleet, she said. Form protective formation around our remaining combat ships. We are the last line. Let nothing through. The supply ships moved into position. They were not built for combat. They were slow and weak. But they were there, and that was enough. An hour later, when a wave of Velthari missiles came screaming toward the human fleet, Boyang's ships intercepted them. 37 supply vessels exploded in rapid succession. Boyang's flagship, the Steady Hand, took 12 direct hits before it finally broke apart. In her final moments, Boyang was reciting names. Her grandchildren, her children, her husband who had died 20 years ago. She wanted them to be the last thing she thought about. They were. On the horizon's edge, Commodore Yunhami reported what her special operations teams had discovered. The voice of endings is not just a commander, she said. It is a hive mind node. Every Velthari ship is connected to it. If we destroy the voice, the entire fleet loses coordination. They will be confused, disorganized, vulnerable. Suho looked at the tactical display. The voice of endings was located on a massive command station at the center of the Velthari formation. It was surrounded by 100 ships. Its shields were the strongest in the enemy fleet. How do we reach it? He asked. Hemi pulled up a diagram. My teams can infiltrate the station. We can lower the shields from inside. But someone has to draw their fire. Someone has to get close enough to launch the infiltration pods. Vice Admiral Choi Junho stepped forward. He was 56 years old, with a scar across his chin from a battle he had fought 30 years ago. He'd been married 3 times. He had no children. He had always said the fleet was his family. My carrier group, he said. We can do it. Suho shook his head. Junho, that is a suicide mission. Every mission today has been a suicide mission. Junho smiled. At least this one might actually win the war. They argued for 3 minutes. Suho ordered him to find another way. Junho refused. In the end, there was no other way. They both knew it. You stubborn fool, Suho said. That is why you like me. Junho clasped his hand. Tell the others I died annoying you. That is how I want to be remembered. He left the bridge. 5 minutes later, his carrier group began its attack run. 12 ships. 4,000 crew. They flew directly at the command station, firing everything they had. The Velthari turned to face them. The fighting was savage. Junho's ships were torn apart one by one. But they kept coming. They kept drawing fire. They kept making room for Hami's infiltration pods. When only Junho's flagship remained, the pods had reached the station. The special operations teams were inside. Suho, Junho said over the radio. His ship was burning. Half his crew was dead. He was still smiling. I always said I would retire somewhere warm. His ship accelerated toward the command station. The Nova Lance charged. See you on the other side, Junho said. The weapon fired. The ship exploded. And for one brief moment, a new star was born in the heart of the Valkyrie formation. The command station's shields collapsed. Inside, Hemi soldiers fought through corridors of metal and flesh. They found the voice of endings at the center of the station, a vast biological machine connected to thousands of cables. It screamed at them in 100 languages. It threatened and pleaded and cursed. They destroyed it anyway. Across the battlefield, 20,000 Valkyrie ships suddenly went silent. Their movement stopped. Their weapons paused. The hive mind that controlled them was gone. For the first time since the battle began, the human fleet had a chance. The voice of endings was silent. And in that silence, the Valkyrie fleet began to die. Ships that had moved with perfect coordination now drifted aimlessly. Vessels that had fought as one now turned on each other, their targeting systems confused, their command structures shattered. Explosions rippled through the enemy formation as Valkyrie ships collided, fired on allies, retreated in random directions. Admiral Park Suho watched it happen and felt nothing but exhaustion. They had won. Against all odds, against every calculation, against 40,000 years of Valkyrie conquest, humanity had won. But the price was beyond counting. Of 4,000 ships, fewer than 600 remained operational. Over 2 million humans had died in 20 hours of fighting. 3 of his admirals were gone. Boyang, Junho, and dozens of captains he had known for years. Friends he had trusted with his life. People who had families waiting for them on distant worlds. Admiral, Yuna said. She was still at her console, still bleeding, still refusing to leave. The Valkyrie are retreating. What remains of their fleet is pulling back. Suho nodded slowly. Let them go, sir? We do not have the strength to pursue. And they need to survive. He turned to look at his daughter. Someone has to tell the rest of the Dominion what happened here. Someone has to spread the word that we can be fought, that we can win. Across the battlefield, the scattered remains of the human fleet began to regroup. Medical ships moved among the wreckage, searching for survivors. Rescue teams pulled wounded soldiers from burning hulls. Everywhere, humans were alive who should have been dead, saved by luck or skill, or the sacrifice of others. Pilot An Seojin drifted in her damaged fighter, watching the stars. Her squadron was gone. Her friends were gone. Her left engine had failed an hour ago, and her weapons were empty. She had spent the last part of the battle as a witness, unable to fight, unable to help, only able to watch. Now she watched the Valkyrie run, and she whispered the names of her fallen comrades. Beek Jian, Wang Dian, all the others who had died beside her in the darkness between stars. We did it, she said to no one. We actually did it. A rescue shuttle found her 20 minutes later. When the medics pulled her from her cockpit, she was unconscious, her hands still gripping the flight controls. She had not let go even when her fighter lost power. She had refused to give up. On Earth, it was evening in Seoul. The sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The streets were empty. Everyone was inside, watching the news, waiting for word from the fleet. When the announcement came, the city exploded with sound. People ran into the streets, crying and laughing and embracing strangers. Church bells rang. Car horns blared. Somewhere, Someone started singing the old anthem, and others joined in, until the entire city was singing together. They had survived. Against impossible odds, humanity had survived. But in the quiet spaces between the celebrations, people remembered the cost. 2.1 million dead. Fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, friends and lovers, all gone forever. The victory was real, but so was the grief. On the horizon's edge, Chief Engineer Baydon finally allowed himself to rest. He had not slept in 36 hours. He had kept the ship's systems running through damage that should have destroyed them 10 times over. Now he sat on the floor of the engine room, surrounded by his exhausted crew, and closed his eyes. "We made it work," he said to himself. After 15 years, we made it work. His Nova Lances had changed the battle. His engineering had kept the fleet alive. He had done his part. Now all he wanted was to sleep. Dr. Han Mireille sat at her station on the bridge, watching data scroll across her screens. Her virus had spread beyond the Velthari fleet. It was now broadcasting through every communication network in the region. The images from the processing facility were being seen by billions of beings across 100 worlds. Already, reports were coming in. Species that had lived under Velthari rule for centuries were rising up. Fleets that had stayed neutral were mobilizing. The Galactic Council, which had refused to help humanity, was now issuing condemnations of the Dominion. The Velthari would never recover from this. Their empire, built on fear and silence, was collapsing because one young species had refused to die quietly. "We did more than win a battle," Mireille said. "We started a revolution." In his quarters, Admiral Suho sat alone for the first time in 20 hours. He had given his final orders. He had spoken to his surviving captains. He had recorded messages for the families of the dead. Now there was nothing left to do but think. He pulled up footage from Earth. Children playing in parks. Cities bustling with life. People going about their days, unaware of how close they had come to extinction. This was what they had fought for. This was what 2 million people had died to protect. The door opened. Yuna entered, her arm in a sling. Her uniform finally changed. The medics insisted on treating her. She had finally agreed. She sat beside her father without speaking. For a long moment, they simply watched the footage together. Was it worth it? Yuna asked finally. Suho thought about Junho, flying his burning ship into the heart of the enemy. He thought about Boyan, reciting her grandchildren's names as she died. He thought about every soldier who had chosen to fight when running was easier, who had given everything so that others might live. "Ask me in 100 years," he said, "when their great-grandchildren are still free." Yuna leaned her head against his shoulder. It was a gesture from her childhood, from the years before her mother died, before the war, before everything changed. Suho put his arm around her and held her close. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. Among them, the wreckage of battle drifted silently. The graves of heroes who would never be forgotten on Earth. As the first stars appeared in the evening sky, a young girl tugged at her mother's sleeve and pointed upward. "Mama," she said, "what is that bright light?" "The one that was not there before." Her mother looked up. The light was new. A distant glow that had not existed yesterday. It came from far away, from a place most humans would never see. "That is where the battle was," her mother said. She was crying, though she tried to hide it. "That is where they fought for us. The soldiers?" "Yes, baby. The soldiers." The little girl stared at the light for a long time. Then she smiled, as children do when they do not fully understand but know something important has happened. "They are heroes," she said. Her mother held her close. "Yes, they are heroes. And we will remember them forever." Above them, the stars continued to burn. And somewhere in the darkness, the survivors of Earth's fleet began their long journey home. They had risen at dawn. They had fought through day and night. And when the sun set, they had won. The Volturi Dominion would fall within a year, its power broken, its secrets exposed. Other species would rise to fill the void, building something better on the ruins of tyranny. And humanity, the young species that should have been nothing, that should have been food, that should have been easy prey, would take its place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as masters, but as proof that some things are worth fighting for, even when the odds say you cannot win. That is what humanity means. That is what the galaxy learned on the day Earth's final Armada rose at dawn. And by nightfall, the stars were burning.